Hey y'all, it's Nancy the Handy Scandy. Welcome back for another crafty venture. I've had folks request to show a demo, if you will, of how I used the For the Love of Carrots layered stencils to create a background. I did so for a project for This Calls for Confetti not long ago, and I did not want to create the same thing, and my heart was just needing some rainbow color explosion, so that's what we're doing today. And I will be using the stencils in a similar way. When in the end product, you really don't see a whole lot of the background where the stencils were used, but yeah, my video today, or my project today, was twofold. One, to put some rainbow in my heart and in my life, and two was to use this stencil set in a similar way as before, so that I could show y'all how I did it. So you can see I'm just doing some ink smushing on my Glassboard Studio mat, which I absolutely love. I don't like the glare, but you get a glare on so many different things, so I just bear with it. So on the mat itself, I'm using some distress spray stains as well as fireworks stain. The blue is a fireworks. If you're not familiar with fireworks, they are from Imagine Crafts, and they're basically mica stains, and they're absolutely beautiful. I did not have a blue that I wanted or that I felt coordinated with what I was doing today, because I'm just using the red, the yellow, and the blue to make a full rainbow. So those primary colors do the trick for me, and I'm absolutely loving it. I made one panel by doing all the smushing. This one I did smushing as well as adding spray directly, as you saw, and I opted to go with this one in the end. So I use 3 of the 4 layers of this stencil. Now there, like I said, there are 4, and the 4th one has just some like carrot dash mark patterns. I don't know what else to call it. But I did not need them for this process, so I did not use that particular layer. But this one with the hearts / carrots, I just think is absolutely adorable. They have kind of a whimsical, almost primitive feel to them because of their elongated characteristic. I don't know. Because they are elongated. But anyway, I am just kind of laying it down and putting through the crackle paste, which I am using. What is it? Is it? Oh, I don't have it in front of me. You saw it on the screen, hopefully, and I will also list it downstairs in the description box. So that is my first layer. I set it aside to dry. I did use the heat tool a little bit on some places, but when you use a heat tool on crackle paste, you just don't get the best result. So I would encourage you, just set it aside to dry. And so here I'm using one of the other layers. This one has the stems, which for me, using it in this way is just foliage. They don't have to be carrot stems. And then there's teeny tiny little carrots, if you will, but again, I'm just using them as hearts. And I'm going kind of random, like I lay the stencil down and I put my paste through the whole thing, but then I also come back and fill in some of my gaps. Now, if you guys didn't know, and if you have not gathered by watching this video, even just this little bit of it, I am a messy crafter. Having paste run underneath my stencil or run beyond the edges or that kind of thing, or smush and smudge, depending on the project, but it really doesn't bother me because the backgrounds are the backgrounds. I adore making backgrounds, but so much of it gets covered up, and in this particular project, most of it gets covered up. So I really didn't need to do anything to the background because most of it is covered up. But really wanted to show that process. Now in the other card, and I will try to remember to link to that video, but I use a black, I think it was the Distress Texture Paste in black, and just use that in different ways. And then I use more neutral tones, more kind of fall tones, earthy tones to create my project in that one. And I take the stencils and I spray stains through them, and then I print with the stencils. And I use the stencils in a much, I don't know, in several different ways. I do different techniques. So I'm not showing that whole process here. Mostly I just showed the stenciling through it and the messy way that I do it. and just going back and using specific parts of the stencil to fill in some of those gaps, if you will. So here, if you did not know, I am just stamping, and I didn't really want an ombre per se, so I didn't want there to be a nice pretty blend between my colors, because if you've ever seen real pottery, there's also a very harsh line between colors because they dip it. Right? I don't know if you've ever seen the pottery process, but they'll take the vessel and actually dip it into a vat, if you will, of color. And then they'll flip it over. Maybe they'll fire that one side and then come back and do the other. I'm not really sure on that part of the process. But dipping is very much, it's very common in pottery making. And so that was the look I was going for. And of course I was going with the rainbow. So I have red and orange, orange yellow, yellow green, green blue, blue red. Left out the violet altogether on this particular one. It was just easier. And these little vessels, little flower vases, they're a little bit bigger than I thought that they were. And so they take up more property, more real estate on the background. And so I have trimmed that panel down to just under 5x7. My overall card is a 5x7 card. I wanted it to be big enough so that I could put all of this rainbow goodness on there. And cutting down my card panel, it is 7x10, and I score it at 5, so I have 5.5x7. And then I have another white layer there that's just under 5x7, and I just kind of gradiate each layer, or graduate maybe is a better word, just so that they're just a little bit smaller, probably maybe 1/8 of an inch smaller than the layer below it or above it, smaller than the layer above it, yeah, so that each layer shows out. And then I just stamped out these little hearts because I wanted the heart detail. And then I'm going back and coloring them with my Olo markers, red, orange, yellow, blue, green. And then I stamped out the honeysuckle image and doing the same thing, using the same markers to color these. I am using 2 tones of green to do the flowers, and then or the leaves and the base of the flowers. And just down and dirty, not doing any ink blending per se, one color, just filling it in, and just that bold, bright color. Now the green, I do wish that I would have used a different shade of green. I used more of a yellowy green, so it just doesn't stand out much from the yellow. Now here's where I'm layering my panels, and you can see what I meant by them being just a little bit, the top layer being a little bit smaller than the layer beneath it. And that allows me to add that black frame so things pop. One thing that I would have done while I'm auditioning my vessels here, I would have probably created, like, I don't know, some kind of visual separation between the vases and the background. So you can see the smudges and where the pastes went up under the stencil and things like that on that background. But again, most of it is being covered, so you really don't see the flubs. So if the flubs bother you, just go slower in your stenciling process. Wait for one layer to dry before you add another. There are safeguards that you can put into place to prevent the messiness, but the messiness just doesn't bother me. So, but again, know for your project, you do you stamp and stencil in the way that suits your sensibilities and makes your heart happy. And if the messiness just doesn't do that for you, that is okay. I understand. There are some times I even get too messy for my own sensibilities, and I just have to start over. But anyway, here I am layering up my images, having to kind of stagger them, if you will. And I knew that I wanted the first and the last one to be more prominent. And so I'm lifting them up on some foam tape. I added the twine around the bottom of the midsection because I was hoping that would, because it's black and white, that it would ground it a little bit more and that it would create that visual separation that I felt was needed. but because again that it really gets covered up, so you really don't see it. Yeah, I would have added like a smaller, another oval of white or rectangle of white or something like that, just to set those off from the background. Not so much to cover the background up, but that there's visual separation, because it's a lot for the eye, and I needed that color explosion, and I wanted that color explosion, and I love it, but I do feel like just because there's a lot going on that it needed a visual separation. So y'all tell me what you think. Am I harping too much on that, or do you think it's fine? Does your eye need a place to rest as well? You tell me. Thanks for joining me, guys. If you have any more questions on how I use that stencil, I can go back and do a full tutorial on the exact same way that I did it before. You just let me know what you'd like to see. And until next time, guys, like, subscribe, comment. All the products are listed downstairs in the description box. You can shop This Calls for Confetti by using the links downstairs. And until next time, mwah, I'm out.